Hey guys, tonight we're going to do something a little polished. You're not a conqueror or a general or even someone important enough to own a decent pair of sandals. No, you're the mirror polisher for Alexander the Great. Every morning, before the battles, before the speeches, before he decides which part of Persia to erase, your job is to make sure the man sees a perfect version of himself staring back. It's sweaty, it's tense, and honestly, you'd rather polish a camel. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop a comment with where and when you're listening. Maybe you're in bed at 9 p.m. in Denver or catching this at 3 a.m. in Saigon while contemplating your life choices. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You hear the trumpets at dawn again, not the dramatic, cinematic kind, but the real ones. Squeaky, nasal, like someone arguing with a goose. Your tent flap sways, letting in just enough light to remind you that yes, you're still in the middle of nowhere, and yes, it's already hot enough to boil olive oil. Your hands find the cloth without thinking. You don't look at the mirror before polishing. You never do. You just start rubbing the surface. Small circles, careful pressure. The bronze disc is heavier than it looks, warm from the tent heat, and slick with dew and dust. You've learned to buff out every fingerprint, every trace of the last day's war paint, like erasing yesterday from his face. Outside, soldiers are dragging their armor like teenagers, late for school. You hear one of the Macedonian veterans coughing up something that might have once been lungs, and someone shouting, "Where's my other sandal?" Typical morning. You know Alexander's routine better than your own. He'll wake with a growl, stretch with theatrical flair, like a lion in a children's play, and then call out something pretentious like, "Bring me the sun," which, of course, means you and the mirror. Today, when you step into the royal tent, he's sitting cross-legged in a loose linen wrap, eyes still foggy with sleep. His hair's a wild mess of blonde knots, like a haystack lost a fight with a storm. He blinks at you. Mirror. You bow, not because you want to, but because you still remember that time a guy handed him a mirror upside down and ended up scrubbing horses until winter. You kneel beside him, lift the polished bronze into the right angle so it catches the soft desert light. He squints into it, tilts his head, narrows his eyes. Then he flexes his jaw dramatically. "I look Greek," he mutters. "Don't I look Greek?" You nod like a nervous pigeon. He does look Greek. Macedonian, technically. But now is not the time for nuance. "You know," he adds, adjusting his robe and pointing at his chin. "I read that Heracles didn't even have a beard until his 30s. Maybe I should keep this clean-shaven look." Thoughts? You try not to speak. You've learned the art of expressive nodding. Nodding that says yes, but also, "Please don't ask me to touch your face again." Suddenly, he lunges forward and jabs a finger at the mirror. "Wait, what is that? Is that a pore?" You panic. A bead of sweat rolls down your back. You've been caught by a man whose face has been drawn on more scrolls than your entire lineage. It's the light, you whisper. Or maybe the gods. They test your symmetry. That works, he beams. Yes, the gods, testing me, just like Achilles. Good. You resist the urge to ask if Achilles would have spent 10 minutes inspecting his hairline. Outside, horses scream. Battle prep. Someone's sharpening a spear against a shield. The camp is shifting into that low thunder of readiness. But in here, it's just you and the mirror and Alexander, trying to decide if the sun should hit him from the left or the right when he gives today's speech. You know what's coming next. You've been here before. He stands suddenly, fists at his hips, turning toward the tent's open flap like he's imagining himself on a coin. I wonder, he muses, when they carve my face into marble, will they get the nose right? You try not to laugh. You really do. But it slips. Just a wheeze. You cover it with a cough. He doesn't notice. Too busy adjusting his tunic, his posture, his destiny. And you? You just keep polishing. They say Alexander never lost a battle. That he conquered the known world by 30. That he had the ambition of 100 kings packed into one very loud, very dramatic man. But none of those stories ever mention you, the person who made sure he looked properly godlike each dawn. Still, history is weird that way. Did you know the average Greek mirror in your day was just polished bronze, not glass? That's right. No silver, no crystal. Just hammered metal and hopes, which meant every imperfection you left behind looked 10 times worse to a man with an ego the size of Asia. Also, fun fact, some mirrors were engraved with tiny prayers on the back, just in case the reflection showed something unholy. You never told Alexander that, of course. He'd demand you carve one for him in gold. Some historians still argue about what drove him so relentlessly. Glory, guilt, insecurity about his forehead. Who knows? All you know is, tomorrow morning, you'll be back with the mirror again, and he'll still be wondering if the world loves him more with a side part or full curls. And you'll keep polishing, because in a world of blood and empire, sometimes it's the small, shiny things that make kings feel invincible. And that, strangely enough, is your power. The royal tent is already a mess, and the sun hasn't even cleared the horizon. You step around what looks suspiciously like a half-eaten fig, narrowly avoiding a sandal that's been thrown across the floor, like it insulted someone's lineage. Alexander's voice crackles from behind the curtain. Where's the blue one? No, the other blue one. You're not even sure what that means. Tunic? Sash? Goblet? Parrot? With this man, it could be anything. You clench the mirror under one arm, the cloth draped over your shoulder like a fashionably reluctant martyr, and shuffle forward, just in time for a servant to come flying out of the tent, pale and wide-eyed. Probably asked the wrong question. You breathe in, steel yourself, and push the flap aside. Alexander is standing in the middle of the tent like a flamingo in the middle of a wardrobe explosion, half-dressed, fully energized, and already monologuing to his reflection in a silver dish. You gently cough. He whirls towards you. Finally, there you are. Why are you always late when the Persians are watching? You weren't late. You were literally polishing the mirror outside while he was shouting about sandals. but sure. You kneel, hold up the mirror, and try to find an angle that doesn't catch the shadow of the unmade cot behind him. He scowls into it, then squints at you. Does this look like a conqueror's neck? You look. You tilt. You nod solemnly. Looks like destiny, with a nice collarbone. He grins. Exactly what I thought. Behind him, a eunuch is trying to relace his ceremonial boots while dodging wild gesturing. One of the generals, maybe Ptolemy, sticks his head in and immediately regrets it. I said I needed silence while I choose a belt. Alexander shouts. The man vanishes. You've seen it all. The royal grooming hour is less like preparation and more like a one-man theater performance with an audience of terrified assistants. He grabs a comb and begins dragging it through his curls, grimacing. Do you think Darius had to deal with this? You don't answer. You're too focused on keeping your arm still as he leans into the mirror for the 12th time. Then comes the inevitable twist. He pauses, frowns. Did you change something? Your heart drops. No, you did not. The Polish is flawless. The lighting is consistent. You've seen statues with less expression than your poker face right now. Looks different today, he mutters. I look tired. You try to smile. You look victorious, my lord. That works. He puffs up like a peacock at a torchlit gala. He turns away to inspect a row of cloaks and mutters, the Persians wear perfume in their hair. Maybe I should try that. Something smoky. You try not to imagine the scent of smoky scalp oil on top of 3 days of battlefield sweat. Out of nowhere, he spins back toward you. What if we fight naked today? You freeze. I mean, like the Greeks of old, he says, excited now. In Sparta, they fought unclothed. Symbolic. Fearless. You nod carefully. Symbolism is powerful. Exactly. Then he pauses, glances into the mirror. But maybe not today. I don't think my knees are symmetrical. You let out the slowest, quietest sigh. Did you know ancient Macedonian armor was often a hybrid of Greek and local styles? Alexander's gear changed constantly, sometimes to blend in, sometimes to stand out. He once wore Persian robes to pacify a region, and the Macedonians nearly had a riot over it. Some historians still argue about his style choices. Was he trying to unify cultures, or just playing dress-up with a continent? You're not sure. You just know. It took 3 hours to find his favorite red cloak last week because he wanted to match the sunrise during a siege. Now he's lacing his armlet like it's a snake with anxiety. You shift your weight. Your arm is cramping. You've held up this mirror for so long, your shoulder is humming, but you can't lower it. Not yet. Let's practice the entrance, he announces. You blink. The entrance? He nods. When I come out of the tent, it should be slow, controlled, but with an undercurrent of power. Think lion, not lizard. You don't even know what that means anymore. But he walks past you, head high, arms wide, pauses dramatically at the flap, turns back. Was that too much? You shake your head. Perfect amount of lion. Good. He looks into the mirror again, now smiling. You know, they'll write songs about me. Paintings. Statues. All of it. They already do. You reply. He nods, then mutters, almost like a child. Do you think I'll look handsome in a statue? You pause. Terrifyingly handsome. He laughs. You always know the right lie. He exits in a flourish, tossing his cloak like a magician, revealing a dove. You're left behind, arm aching, mirror warm from his breath, and then, like every morning, you finally exhale. You survived the grooming hour. Barely. Tomorrow, it might involve a falcon, or a harpist, or a cape he insists is made from Medusa's hair. You never know. But one thing's for sure. You'll be there again, with the mirror, and the nerves, and the very real possibility of being trampled by ambition in silk slippers. You're polishing in peace, which in this camp means only 3 people shouting instead of 10, when a voice erupts from inside the tent. Who stole my sandal? You flinch. Not again. The last time a sandal went missing, the royal astrologer had to explain for an hour that Mercury, being in retrograde, had nothing to do with footwear sabotage. That was 2 weeks ago. The sandal was under his bed the whole time. You duck inside, mirror under your arm like always, just in time to see Alexander hopping mad. Literally, 1 foot in a gilded sandal, the other bare, waving in the air like a flag of royal distress. Do you see it? He asks you. You blink. The sandal? No. The betrayal. He limps dramatically to his cot, sits down, and rubs his foot like it's been wounded in war. You resist the urge to point out he hasn't actually stepped outside yet. Persian ghosts, he whispers. It's them. I can feel it. You do not laugh. You've seen what happens when people laugh. He gestures for the mirror. You hand it to him silently, and he uses it, not to look at himself, but to inspect under his bed. Nothing, which is suspicious, he says. You nod solemnly. Suspicious indeed. Now, this is important. This is not the first time Alexander has accused ghosts of petty theft. During the march through Syria, he blamed phantom assassins for his missing sleep sash. Turned out a goat ate it. Still, some historians actually do debate whether Alexander believed in spirits or just liked the drama. One theory even suggests he saw himself as a bridge between worlds, king of both the living and the dead. Convenient when your sandal goes missing, he turns to you with wide eyes. You believe in ghosts, don't you? You pause. Choose your words like stepping through a field of javelins. I believe that certain sandals attract supernatural attention. He gasps. Yes. Thank you. Finally, someone with insight. He puts a hand on your shoulder. You freeze. He's sweaty, really sweaty. And dramatic sweat is the worst kind. It carries a kind of ambition in it. He stands suddenly, fueled by sandal-fueled indignation. We are being tested, he declares, by the spirits of Persia, and perhaps Troy. He points dramatically eastward, or well, toward the food tent, but the gesture is what matters. The gods want to know, can I lead with 1 foot naked? You open your mouth to object, then close it. You're not about to start a theological debate about footwear. He waves you forward. Come, I will enter the meeting barefoot. Let it be known, even without a sandal, Alexander walks with glory. He strides past a group of stunned scribes. One of them nearly drops an ink pot. A general clears his throat. Sir, you forgot your... I forgot nothing, Alexander snaps. The ghost took it. The general nods. Of course. Persian ghost. Sneaky devils. You trail behind with the mirror, reflecting his solemn expression like you're documenting a tragedy. You angle the bronze just right, catching the one dusty foot and the one adorned in leather and gold, like a very confused statue. Did you know some Macedonian soldiers believed wearing mismatched items before battle warded off bad luck? You suspect Alexander knows this. You also suspect he doesn't care. He just wants a new superstition to claim as his own. You've seen him touch statues for luck, whisper to trees, ask birds for omens, but nothing compares to the sandal saga. Later, after the meeting, which he absolutely dominated barefoot, like some kind of philosophical beach bum, he calls you back into the tent. I found it, he says, holding the sandal up with a look of serene victory. It was inside my shield. Of course it was. Obviously the ghosts were testing me, he adds. Like that explains everything. You nod, and you passed. He beams. Exactly. Then, casually, he tosses the sandal aside. Burn it. You pause. Pardon? Ghosts touched it. I'm not taking any chances. You pick up the sandal carefully, like it's radioactive. Outside, you find a brazier still glowing from the cook fire. Drop it in and watch it blacken. You think you hear something behind you. Maybe wind, maybe laughter. That night, Alexander holds the mirror to the firelight and asks you, do you think I'd look taller with different sandals? You shrug. Maybe ones with more divine elevation? He thinks. Like souls carved from Mount Olympus. That might take time. He sighs. True. He yawns. Tomorrow, we consult. The priests? Or maybe I'll just invent a new ritual, something to cleanse the tent. Ghosts, you know. You nod. The sandal ghosts. Yes. Exactly. He lies back, one foot still bare. And you keep polishing the mirror, your cloth soaking up the flickering orange glow, wondering how many empires rise and fall over misplaced footwear. Probably more than you'd guess. You're up before the flies today. The dawn is still yawning open, and yet there you are, crouched on a rock, polishing that same bronze disc like it holds the secrets of Olympus. And maybe it does, because today, Alexander decides, completely unprompted, that he might be a god. Again, you know the signs by now. The slower walk, the half smile, like he knows something the rest of the world hasn't figured out yet. And of course, the sudden refusal to let anyone else touch the us mirror. He snatches it from your hands before you can say a word. Do not interfere, he says. I need to see the truth. You step back. This is the same man who once made a priest cry by asking, if I am divine, and you disagree. Isn't that basically heresy? So you don't disagree. You let him angle the mirror toward the light, squint, and tilt his chin like he's expecting Zeus himself to wink back. He hums. Yes, this is what divinity looks like. He's shirtless, covered in dust, hair matted like he's been wrestling lions. But sure, divinity. He looks over his shoulder at you. If I were a god, which do you think I'd be? You blink. Carefully. Apollo? He beams. Exactly. You see me. He turns back to the mirror and starts flexing, slowly, watching each muscle move like it's proof of celestial origin. You've had fever dreams that made more sense than this. Morning. Did you know Alexander's campaign often included explicit efforts to paint himself as a god? He demanded to be recognized as the son of Zeus Ammon, especially after visiting the Oracle of Siwa. Some historians argue he genuinely believed it. Others think it was clever propaganda. Either way, it made mornings like this extremely delicate. He lowers the mirror slightly, suddenly frowning. Do you think gods age? You freeze. There it is, the real question, peeking out from beneath the bravado like a mouse behind a throne. You clear your throat. Not visibly. They become more iconic. He nods slowly. Yes, like wine or statues. Then, after a long pause, you think, they'll get my nose right when they sculpt me? You resist the urge to mention the marble bust from a few months ago that mysteriously vanished after being declared unflatteringly realistic. Instead, you say, they'll idealize you. He breathes out, satisfied. Then, a wild pivot. I should do something heroic before lunch. You blink. Like, he stands up, all energy again. Visit the wounded. Or maybe train with the elephants. Something divine, but accessible. He's already pacing. You can practically see the headlines in his mind. God King lifts spear, smiles at orphans. He stops, looks back at you. Polish it again. You reach for the mirror. He pulls it away. No, not you. I'll do it myself. Your heart skips. That's not in the script. That's not in the routine. But he's already doing it. Pressing the cloth in small circles, frowning when the smear doesn't go away immediately. Is it defective? He asks. You shake your head. It just takes time. He grunts. Like conquest. He keeps rubbing. You watch, and something in you shifts. You realize, maybe this mirror isn't about vanity. Maybe it's his shield, his confessional, his battlefield even. After all, who else gets to stare Alexander the Great in the face every morning and not flinch? Not his generals, not his enemies, just his mirror. And you. Later, he hands it back, eyes softer than usual. You've kept it, flawless, he says. You nod. It's what I do. He almost smiles. And one day, when they ask how I looked before the Battle of Gaugamela, or after the fall of Tyre, you'll know. You nod again. Every pore. He laughs. Genuinely, this time. You're good. You should write epics. I just polish reflections. You reply. Same thing. He shrugs. One with bronze, the other with words. That night, after he's gone, you hold the mirror up to your own face, and for just a moment, you wonder what you look like, through the eyes of a god. Tired, yes, but also immortal, in the smallest possible way. You knew something was different the moment he picked up the knife. Not the kind used for battle. That would have made too much sense. No, this one was delicate, ornamental, with a handle carved from ivory and inlaid with mother of pearl. The kind of blade that says, I'm rich, unhinged, and possibly about to do something deeply symbolic. Alexander stood before you, mirror in one hand, knife in the other, eyes blazing with the sort of reckless clarity you usually only see in philosophers who haven't eaten in 3 days. I'm cutting my hair, he announced. You blinked. Yourself? He nodded, like Achilles did before battle. Alone, heroic, a man facing destiny and split ends. He didn't wait for your opinion. Not that you were going to offer one. You'd learned your lesson the hard way when you once suggested his curls looked weathered after a storm in Phoenicia. He positioned the mirror on a stool, angled perfectly toward a sunbeam streaming through the tent flap. The lighting was theatrical. Of course it was. Then came the first snip. It echoed like a drum beat. A lock of golden hair floated to the ground, landing near a pile of half-unfolded tunics and a crumpled map of Bactria. He leaned closer to the mirror, turning his head this way and that, trying to match the asymmetry of ancient myth. Do you think this looks battle-ready? Or more tragic romance? You cleared your throat gently. Possibly both. Perfect, he said, nodding. A hero must always be prepared to die or seduce, sometimes both before breakfast. You watched as he butchered his bangs with the solemn intensity of a sculptor possessed. Snip, angle, scowl, repeat. Eventually, he paused, frowned, turned to you. Be honest. Do I look like I've been touched by the gods? Or like I lost a bet? You tilted your head, considered his half-sheared appearance a divine accident. He clapped his hands, delighted. Yes, exactly. That's the look. He turned to the mirror again and struck a pose that might have been thoughtful conqueror or distracted farmer. It was hard to tell. Then he sighed deeply. Achilles cut his hair at the funeral of Patroclus, he murmured. You know that? You nodded. Of course you did. He told that story at least once a week. Some say it was grief, he continued, voice softer. Others say it was surrender, like he was cutting away the last thread, tying him to peace. He ran a hand through his now jagged hair. What am I cutting away? You said nothing, because honestly, you didn't know. Fear, maybe, or guilt, or just another attempt to feel ancient and legendary before lunch. Did you know Alexander carried a copy of the Iliad with him at all times, annotated by Aristotle himself? He slept with it under his pillow. Some say he modeled his life after Achilles, so intensely that it became hard to tell where the myth ended and the man began. Some historians still argue whether his obsession was admiration or performance, maybe both. Do you think Hephaestion would laugh at this? Alexander asked suddenly. You hesitated. I think, you said carefully, he'd say you were still the most handsome man in Asia. He smiled faintly, eyes dropping. He always knew how to lie with grace. He stood then, brushing hair from his tunic, and tossed the knife aside like a soldier discarding a broken blade. Tell no one I did this, he ordered, though you both knew the entire tent staff had heard everything. Tomorrow, say the wind changed my style. You bowed slightly. As you wish. He gave you the mirror back. It was warm from his hands, still smelled faintly of oil and ambition. You rubbed at the edge automatically, as if erasing the evidence. Outside, the army was stirring. Horns in the distance. The clink of armor. Somewhere, someone was yelling about rations again. But in here, the tent was still, and Alexander the Great stood half haircut, half legend, half awake. One foot in history, the other in theater. You turned to leave, but he stopped you. Hey, he called, voice unexpectedly light. When they carve my statue, maybe they'll forget this cut. You glanced back. Maybe, you said, but they'll remember the mirror. He laughed, not the loud lion roar kind, but a chuckle that sat deep in his chest. You carried that sound with you the rest of the day, tucked in your memory like a lucky coin. And that night, when the camp quieted and the fires turned to embers, you looked into the mirror once more before wrapping it in its cloth. Your reflection wavered, distorted slightly by the dim light. You didn't look like a soldier or a hero, but somehow you looked necessary, and that was enough. By midday, the sun is trying to murder everyone, the kind of heat that peels paint off statues and melts ambition into sweaty regret. You're squatting behind a barrel, polishing the mirror in tiny, deliberate circles, while your tunic clings to you like an over-affectionate lizard. Alexander, naturally, is unfazed. He's out in full gear, bronze gleaming like the gods dipped him in honey, and shouted, "Victory!" You're not sure what he's preparing for. There hasn't been a battle in days, but judging by the way he's pacing around the camp with a spear and a far-off look, he's definitely conquering something. You barely finish polishing when he calls, "Bring the mirror." You rise, mirror in both hands, arms already aching from holding it steady during yesterday's haircut opera. As you approach, he's facing the horizon like it owes him an apology. He takes the mirror and stares into it silently. His forehead is glistening, eyes slightly narrowed. "I need to look determined," he mutters, "but not strained. You know?" You nod. "Of course. Determined, but make it effortless. I'm meeting with the commanders," he adds. "They think I'm pushing the army too far east." You almost choke. Too far east. You've crossed deserts, mountains, rivers, and at least 2 countries that might not have existed until Alexander marched through them and decided you're a city. Now, here's a statue of me. Congrats. Their legs are weak, he says, adjusting his sash. Mine are the legs of destiny. He strikes a pose. You adjust the mirror slightly so his muscles catch the sun, just so, like a heroic roast chicken. They don't understand, he continues. This isn't just about conquest. It's about vision. He pauses. Do I look visionary? You examine his face, the furrowed brow, the intensity in his eyes, the single drop of sweat clinging to his upper lip, like it's afraid to fall. You look like a man 10 steps ahead of the world, you say. He nods, pleased. Exactly. That's why I need the mirror. I can't rely on their eyes. They see fear. I see completion. You're not entirely sure what that means, but you hum in agreement. Did you know? During the campaign into India, Alexander's army did mutiny, fearing they'd never see home again. They begged him to stop, to turn back. He wept, sulked in his tent. then gave one of his infamous speeches, half guilt, half glory, all drama. Some historians say he was genuinely heartbroken. Others say he was a genius manipulator, bending morale like a blacksmith shapes iron. Today feels like a prelude to one of those moments. He hands the mirror back to you, but doesn't let go. They don't want to follow me anymore, he says, quietly. You hesitate, then say, they'll follow your reflection, if not your feet. He stares at you for a long second, then slowly smiles. You're wasted as a servant. You don't answer, because honestly, you might agree. But then he pivots, literally, and begins marching toward the commander's tent like a man on a divine mission. The mirror is back under your arm, still warm from his grip, still echoing with his doubt. You follow behind, as always. The meeting begins. A flurry of shouting, objections, flared tempers. But Alexander doesn't blink. He stands there, radiant, freshly bronzed from both sun and ego, and delivers a monologue so grand it might as well be carved in marble. As he speaks, you don't hear every word. You're outside, holding the mirror near the tent's flap, angled just enough so that if he glances your way, he can still see himself. He does, mid-sentence, and he straightens his back just a bit more. That's your role, not just to reflect, but to remind. That evening, as the camp settles into smoky twilight and the tension slowly uncoils, you return to your quiet corner. You place the mirror on your lap, cloth in hand, and begin the ritual. Circle, circle, breathe, circle. The polish is smoother now. The metal holds more history than shine. And as you rub away the dust, you can almost see it. Not just Alexander's face, but the weight behind it. The exhaustion of ambition. The ache of being worshipped and feared in equal measure. You wonder what he sees in those quiet seconds when he looks at himself, alone, unguarded. Do gods recognize loneliness, or do they just conquer it? You'll never ask. You'll just keep polishing, because empires may rise on sword points, but they are held together by mirrors. And you make sure this one never cracks. You hear the shouting before you see the cliffs. The soldiers are swarming like ants on the rocks, ropes flying, armor clanking, curses echoing off the stone. It's chaos, the kind that only happens when Alexander decides that a fortress built into a cliff is perfectly climbable if you believe hard enough. You're not a climber. You're a mirror polisher. But today, you've been dragged along to Sogdian Rock, a nearly vertical nightmare said to be impossible to scale, which, naturally, makes it irresistible to Alexander. Your job: keep the mirror safe, as always, and wait, possibly forever. You sit cross-legged near the base camp, surrounded by sharp winds and sharper tempers, polishing with slow, deliberate care, while men shout and scramble like overconfident goats. Then you hear his voice, faint at first, then louder, far too cheerful for someone halfway up a cliff. Did you bring it? You look up. Alexander's leaning out from a rocky ledge halfway up the mountain, waving at you. His hair is wild, his cheeks flushed, his eyes practically glowing with madness. You hold up the mirror. He grins like you've handed him a weapon forged by gods. Toss it. You blink. Toss the mirror. Gently. The divine demands sacrifice. You hesitate, then wrap the bronze carefully in cloth. Whisper a prayer to any deity with a sense of humor, and lob it with all the strength you have. Arcs beautifully through the mountain air, and lands perfectly in his outstretched hands. He laughs, loud and clear, then turns to the stone wall behind him and starts checking his jawline. You stare in disbelief as he turns left, then right, tilting the mirror, brushing back his hair with one hand. You swear he's mouthing something like, "The light of Olympus blesses my cheekbones." He's about to storm a fortress 300 feet in the air. And this is what he's doing. Did you know Alexander's siege of Sogdian Rock is one of the most absurd military victories in ancient history? He sent climbers up the cliffs with spikes and ropes in the dead of night. When they reached the top, the defenders, stunned that anyone would be insane enough to try, immediately surrendered. Some historians argue it wasn't just strategy, it was psychology. Show the enemy something impossible and make them believe it's inevitable. Alexander descends later, victorious, the mirror still in hand. He strides past you, dust and glory clinging to him like perfume. He stops, looks into the mirror again, frowns. "This side's better," he says, turning his face to the left. "Don't you think?" You nod. "Also," he adds, "when they write this story down, make sure they mention that I looked good doing it. You don't write anything down. That's not your role. But in your head, you're already composing it." The day Alexander climbed the scub and paused to check his profile halfway up. Back in camp, the soldiers are singing, fires are lit, food is passed around, spirits are high. But Alexander's not eating. He's pacing, talking to himself, muttering about the next place, the next fortress, the next impossible victory. You find him by a fire, holding the mirror, watching the flames flicker across his reflection. "Do you think they'll remember this?" he asks you. You hesitate. "Of course, but not you," he says. "They'll remember me. Not the one who made me look the part." You shrug. That's how reflections work. No one sees the hand behind the shine. He nods slowly, eyes still fixed on his image. "You could have been anything, you know." "I am," you say. "I'm the one who makes a god visible." He finally looks up. There's something unreadable in his expression. Not quite gratitude, not quite envy, just awareness. Then he grins. "You should have climbed with us." You shake your head. "I'm not mad enough to scale cliffs." He laughs, long and hard, then tosses you a piece of bread. "Good. I need you down here." Can't reflect victory from halfway up a mountain. That night, as the stars spread like spilled wine across the sky, you lie back, mirror beside you, and you wonder if someone had held a mirror to Achilles on the fields of Troy, would he have hesitated? Would he have fixed his hair before charging into fate? Or was that uniquely Alexander? You don't know. But you do know this. Tomorrow, he'll ask again, which angle makes him look more immortal? And you'll answer, because someone has to. The feast starts normal enough for Macedonian standards, which is to say, a goat has been roasted whole. There are enough jugs of wine to fill a bathhouse, and someone's already trying to recite Homer while hiccuping. You're seated at your usual post, just outside the flickering torchlight, polishing the mirror with a rhythm that's almost meditative. You've learned it's best not to sit too close during these things. Too many elbows, too much shouting, too many generals trying to arm wrestle fate. Alexander, however, is at the center of it all, lounging like Dionysus himself, half draped in a red cloak, a crown of withering laurels slipping sideways off his curls, a cup of wine in one hand, and a half-eaten pomegranate in the other. He sees you. Of course he does. His eyes lock onto the mirror like a moth spotting a candle. You, he calls. Bring it. You sigh softly, stand, and weave through the crowd of half-drunken warriors and sticky harpists to deliver the mirror. He holds it in both hands, tilts it forward, and just stares, not admiring, not checking his teeth, just looking, quietly. Then he whispers, "Hephaestion would have told me I look ridiculous." You blink. That name hasn't passed his lips in weeks. You nod slowly. He probably would have added that the laurel crown makes your ears stick out. He laughs. Not a big, bold laugh, just a small, cracked one. Then he downs the wine, grabs a jug, and pours himself another, and another. You can already tell where this night is headed. He leans forward suddenly, mirror balanced on his knees. Did I ever tell you about the time we raced horses naked by the river? He slurs. Yes, 4 times, and once while he was actually on a horse. Best day of my life, he sighs. We laughed so much. I fell off, thought I cracked a rib, but he just kept riding, yelling about how the gods were jealous of our thighs. He laughs again. It doesn't last. He's the only one who knew me, he murmurs, looking down at his reflection. Not the me in statues, not the king, just me. You say nothing. You just keep the cloth ready. Did you know? After Hephaestion died, Alexander refused to eat for days. He had temples built in his honor, declared him a divine hero. Some say he even requested that Hephaestion be worshipped as a god. Others claim he wept like a child in front of the corpse, inconsolable, undone. Some historians still argue whether they were lovers or brothers in arms. Some say it doesn't matter. Grief this deep doesn't need a label. He raises the mirror again. Do you think I've aged? He asks. You look closely. The lines are barely there, but the weight behind the eyes, that's harder to polish away. You look like someone who's been everywhere, you say. Too poetic, he says, frowning. Give me honesty. You hesitate. Then, you look tired. He stares a moment longer, then nods. Good. That's true. He sets the mirror down on the table, almost reverently. Then he slouches back and waves a hand at the wine bearer. Another, and a toast, he declares. To those who see us as we are, and still stay. He raises the cup. Everyone else assumes it's about the army. You know it's about Hephaestion. Maybe a little bit about you. Later that night, when the fire dies and the soldiers snore into the dirt, you retrieve the mirror, now sticky with pomegranate, juice, and fingerprints. You clean it slowly, methodically, and as you do, you catch your own reflection. Tired, Yes, quiet, present. You wonder, if the mirror could talk, what would it say back? Would it tell Alexander he's still the boy who raced by the river, or the man trying to outrun grief in the shape of continents? You wrap the mirror in its cloth. Your hands smell like wine and bronze and smoke. And somewhere nearby, the king sleeps alone. It begins with a whisper, carried on wind that tastes like salt and sand. A storm is coming, not the kind with thunder and lightning, but the worst kind, a sandstorm. You feel it in your teeth before you see it. The grit, the dry scratch that slides under your tongue like a broken promise. The air smells like scorched earth and forgotten oaths. And Alexander, he's outside, shirtless, of course, standing at the edge of camp with his arms crossed like he's challenging the horizon to a duel. You approach, cautiously, mirror tucked beneath your robe, like a sacred scroll. He doesn't turn around. Look at it, he says. The desert's trying to erase everything. You glance out. The wind is thickening. Soldiers are starting to tie scarves over their mouths. Horses are getting skittish. Do you want to go inside? You ask. He finally looks at you, hair whipping across his face, like a mop in a hurricane, and miss the chance to confront the storm itself. You don't answer. You're too busy shielding the mirror, like it's a child. The bronze is already catching the dust, a thin film dulling the surface, faster than your cloth can clean it. Alexander notices. Let it be dirty, he says suddenly. I want to see what I look like through the storm. You pause, but you hand it over. He holds the mirror up to the sky, like he's consulting an oracle. His own reflection wavers, blurred by the swirling grit, face smeared with the palette of chaos. Now this, he says, is honesty. You have no idea what he means. But to be fair, neither does he. Did you know? In the eastern deserts, some believed sandstorms were the breath of forgotten gods, ancient winds sent to punish arrogance and pride. Ironically, that's exactly the kind of weather that follows Alexander wherever he goes. Some historians suggest that Alexander saw these natural forces, storms, earthquakes, eclipses, not as obstacles, but omens, the world reacting to him as if the sky itself couldn't decide whether to crown him or kill him. The storm hits harder, tents collapse, fires sputter out. You duck behind a cart and try to keep the mirror wrapped, but it's already too late. The cloth tears, sand bites your skin, your eyes water. You hear him shouting into the wind. Something about destiny, or Persia, or possibly how no weather can unmake a god. You don't catch every word, but you see him through the dust, tall, defiant, almost glowing in the amber chaos, like a statue that refuses erosion. Then, silence, not complete, just sudden. The storm passes as quickly as it arrived, sweeping away like a moody guest who remembered they had other empires to ruin. The camp is wrecked. Men cough and blink like they've been buried alive. Alexander walks back, coated in dust, his hair matted with sweat and sand, the mirror dangling from one hand. He hands it to you without a word. You turn it over, check for cracks. There's a scratch right across the center, a long, thin scar, running diagonally like a history etched in bronze. You glance at him. He smiles. Leave it, he says. Let the storm stay with me. You nod. Quietly begin polishing around the scar. Careful, respectful, not to erase it, just to honor it. That night, the sky clears. The stars come back. You sit by the fire, the mirror resting beside you. It catches the starlight differently now. Broken, maybe, but still whole. Alexander doesn't ask for it tonight. He just stares at the sky, arms behind his head, whispering names you don't recognize, cities, friends, gods. And you? You stare into the scratched surface of the mirror and realize even legends get worn down. But sometimes it's the damage that makes the reflection true. The tent is quiet this morning, unusually so. No shouting about cloaks, no declarations of divinity, no one accusing the soup of conspiracy. Just stillness, like the kind that sits heavy on a battlefield after the dust has settled. You peek through the flap. Alexander is seated at the low table, elbows resting on a half-unfurled map of India. He's tracing lines with his finger, brow furrowed, eyes far away. You clear your throat softly. He doesn't flinch. You ever hear a god doubt himself? He asks, voice flat. You hesitate. Depends on the god. He exhales, sharp and tired. I spoke with the oracle again, in a dream. Or maybe it was the cook. I'm not sure anymore. You walk in slowly, mirror in hand, wrapped tight like it's asleep. Alexander gestures for it. You place it in front of him and step back, as always. But he doesn't look into it right away. Instead, he stares at the scratched back of the bronze, runs his fingers across the dent left by the sandstorm, frowns. I thought reaching the edge of the world would feel different, he says. You stay silent. This isn't a moment for polishing. I've won every battle, he continues. Brought down kings. Built cities with my name. People kneel before me in languages I don't understand. He finally picks up the mirror, looks into it. But some mornings, he murmurs, I don't even recognize the man staring back. You nod slowly. Maybe you're not looking for a face. Maybe you're looking for proof. He glances at you. Of what? That all? This means something. He chuckles. You've been around philosophers too long. No, you say. Just you. He doesn't reply. Instead, he shifts the mirror slightly, catching the sunlight just right. It glints off his cheek, reflects the red of the map ink, dances across the polished bronze. You watch as his expression changes, not the usual smug tilt or divine stare, but something quieter, sadder. You know, he says, voice low. They say the oracle of Siwa told me I was the son of Zeus. I've heard. He smiles faintly. What if the oracle lied? You pause. Then it was the best lie ever told, you reply. Did you know? The oracle at Siwa was hundreds of miles into the desert, and reaching it was no small feat. Alexander made the journey anyway, seeking divine legitimacy, or perhaps paternal reassurance. Some accounts say he came out beaming, changed. Others say he left in silence. Historians still argue over what the oracle actually told him. Some believe he fabricated the story entirely. Others think he heard exactly what he needed. The truth? Lost to the sands. Alexander stands, mirror still in hand. He turns it to the window of the tent, lets the light shine directly into his eyes. I can see too much, he mutters. Every wrinkle, every choice. You step forward. You asked for clarity. You remind him. That's what the mirror gives. He looks at you for a long time. Sometimes I think you're the only one who sees the whole of me, he says. Not just the conqueror, the man beneath. You bow your head slightly. That's because I've watched him every day. He walks to you and presses the mirror back into your hands. No more polishing today, he says softly. Let it stay as it is. Let the reflection settle. You hold the mirror close. Outside, the camp stirs. Commands shouted. Horses bridled. Maps rolled. Yet inside this tent, time seems to slow. And for once, Alexander doesn't charge ahead, doesn't declare, doesn't dazzle. He just sits and breathes. The reflection in the mirror tonight is quieter than usual. Less gold, more gray. Less God, more man. But maybe that's the point. Maybe the journey wasn't to become divine. Maybe it was just to become visible. You wake to shouting, not the dramatic kind, but the hushed, tense kind that tells you something has gone very wrong. You rush to the tent with the mirror still wrapped in cloth, heart pounding. Outside, generals pace like caged lions. Guards won't make eye contact. Someone's crying near the kitchens, and that never happens unless there's blood or an insulted goat. Inside the tent, Alexander sits slumped on a cushioned stool, shirt half-laced, his face pale in the morning light. He looks up as you enter. I had a dream, he says. You say nothing. Wait. I was standing in the temple of Zeus, but it was cracked, crumbling, statues falling. And then I saw myself, old. You blink. Old? He laughs weakly. Wrinkled. Slow. Forgotten. Can you imagine? You shake your head. No, me neither, he mutters. He gestures, and you hand him the mirror. His hands are trembling. He stares into it, long and hard. No flexing, no posing, no inspecting jawlines today. Just watching. He doesn't say a word for a full minute. Then, I've been bleeding. Your breath catches. Where? He taps his side. It's small, but it's been days. It won't stop. You move instinctively, to help, to lift his robe, but he waves you off. It's not pain I fear, he says. It's silence. After me. You don't know what to say, so you say the only thing that feels true. There will be echoes. He looks up, his eyes, always so alive, seem distant. I used to think I could outlive history, he murmurs. If I built enough, conquered enough, if my name was everywhere, I'd be everywhere. He pauses, but no mirror shows tomorrow. Did you? No. In the final year of his life, Alexander grew increasingly erratic. He ordered impossible building projects, planned more invasions, held banquets laced with omens. Some sources say he drank heavily. Others say he was already sick. A few whisper of poison, political or otherwise. Historians still debate what killed him. Fever, malaria, liver failure, a broken heart after Hephaestion's death. No one agrees. But the moment, this one here, you can feel it in your bones. Something is changing. He hands you the mirror again. This time, he doesn't look back. You'll keep it safe? He asks. You nod. It's the only thing that's seen all of me, he says. Even the parts I wouldn't show my mother. He chuckles, then winces. The smile fades. He lies down on the cot. Not dramatically, not theatrically, just as a man who is, for the first time, tired. You wrap the mirror slowly, hands careful, as if cradling a dying star. You place it gently beside his sleeping form, and then you sit, watching, guarding, polishing nothing. The cloth lies still in your lap. That morning, the sun rises slower than usual, or maybe you just notice it more. The next day begins with silence, and it stays that way. No calls for cloaks, no arguments about gods, no sudden speeches about elephants or glory or sandal philosophy, just stillness, the kind that seeps into your bones and whispers, this is not peace, this is waiting. You slip into the tent, carrying the mirror, not because he asked for it, but because he always does, or did. Alexander is awake, sort of, eyes open, staring at the canopy above, like he's trying to read a message in the folds. His skin looks grayer than bronze now, and even his hair, that impossible halo of youth, lies flat, lifeless. You kneel, you wait, you don't speak. Eventually, he turns his head slowly. His lips twitch into something almost like a smile. I dreamt of Hephaestion again, he whispers. You nod. He doesn't need prompting. He was waiting for me, in a garden, laughing at how serious I looked. He chuckles weakly, said I still hold my shoulders, like I'm expecting applause. You offer him the mirror. He reaches shakily and rests it on his chest. He looks. You ever think, he murmurs, that the reflection we chase isn't really us, just the version we want to believe? You say nothing, but yes, every day. He doesn't look away from the mirror. There are things I never conquered, he says, moments I lost, words I never said. I thought empire would bury those, but they float. He touches the scar from the sandstorm, still visible, still part of the bronze. This one reminds me, he says, that even gods get scratched. You glance at him, unsure if he's joking. He's not. Did you know? He adds, breath, shallow. I once asked the priests if I could be declared immortal while still alive. You shake your head. They said no. Too many witnesses, probably. You laugh, softly, sadly. So does he. But then he closes his eyes, and for the first time, you feel something shift. Not a breeze, not a mood. Something deeper, like history just turned a page. You don't panic. You don't shout. You just sit there, polishing the mirror, because that's what you do. And that's when the general bursts in. Ptolemy, red-faced, wild-eyed. He won't respond. He hisses. His pulse. He's cold. You raise a hand. Not now. They surround him, press fingers to his throat, whisper prayers, argue. You don't move. You're still polishing because someone has to. Later, much later, when the tent is empty and the air feels thick with the weight of names yet to be carved in stone, you stand. You unwrap the mirror. There's a smudge, a perfect imprint of Alexander's final breath, a fogged silhouette, fading slowly. You don't wipe it away. You let it stay, because that too is history. Did you know, when Alexander died in Babylon, the world didn't believe it at first. Rumors spread of poison, rebellion, resurrection. His body didn't decay for days, they said, a sign of divinity, or maybe just a myth already forming. Some historians argue he never died. Not really. He just became something else. You sit by the cot, the mirror in your lap. You look into it, half expecting to see him still there, jaw set, eyes blazing, ready to scold the horizon for daring to look back. But the mirror only shows you the one left behind, the one who bore witness. You lean your head against the wooden tent pole, eyes half closed, cloth in your hand. No polishing tonight. Let the reflection sleep. The tent smells like oil, stale incense, and silence. Outside, the city is restless. Babylon never truly sleeps, but tonight it murmurs, like a crowd waiting for a verdict. Soldiers whisper, envoys pace, scribes scribble with the urgency of men trying to outrun death on parchment. Inside, you kneel by the cot that still holds the shape of a man. He hasn't moved, of course. He won't. But his sandals remain by the bedside, still arranged as if he'll need them in the morning. You polish the mirror slowly, even though he won't be asking for it anymore. But habits don't die just because the man who created them did. That morning, they came for his body, the generals. You recognize the gleam in their eyes, the calculation, not grief, not reverence, strategy. Because Alexander's empire wasn't just carved in blood, it was glued with his presence. And now that glue was drying, Ptolemy was first. I'll take him west, he said, too quickly. To Egypt. It's what he would have wanted. No, said Perdiccas. The funeral cart goes to Macedonia. We honor him where he was born, and on it went. Voices rising, fists slamming, men arguing over a corpse, like vultures, fighting over thunderclouds. You stood in the corner, silent, the mirror under your arm like a shield. No one noticed you, not even when you quietly left. You walked the length of the tent, past the golden armor, past the ivory comb, past the carved stool where Alexander used to rest his foot, and demand the mirror be angled with purpose. You found the basket where he kept his traveling oils and combs, the little things no one will write about, the things that made him human, and beneath them, folded carefully, was a scrap of parchment, a name, no message, no title, just Hephaestion. You don't cry, not exactly, but your throat tightens. You know now, more than ever, that the man they're fighting over was never entirely theirs to begin with. Did you know, after Alexander's death, his body was supposedly preserved in honey, thick and golden to stall decay. The funeral cart meant to carry him was an elaborate chariot, designed with golden lions, columns, and a canopy like a miniature temple. And then it vanished. Some say it never made it to Macedonia. Some say it was stolen. Historians still argue over where his body lies. Maybe it never arrived anywhere. Maybe it dissolved into legend the moment his breath left him. But you remember the moment he last looked into your mirror, and that reflection, that exact one, only you saw. Now the empire is fracturing. Commanders eye each other like hyenas. Maps are being redrawn in back rooms, not battlefields. And you're still here, in the tent, with a mirror no one thinks to take. Because what is a mirror without its subject? Just a disk of silence. You wipe it gently, cloth moving in slow arcs, as if coaxing a memory back to the surface. A face flickers. His face, or maybe just the shape of him. Then you wrap the mirror again. You place it carefully into a linen satchel, sling it over your shoulder, and you leave the tent. Past the soldiers, past the scribes, past the men fighting for pieces of a man they never truly saw. No one stops you. No one even looks your way. And as you pass into the deeper streets of Babylon, into alleys filled with lanterns and whispers and shadowed doorways, you realize something quietly thrilling. You carry the last honest reflection, not just of a man, but of a moment, and they will never see it again. You rise before dawn, because habits refuse to die even when kings do. The air of Babylon hangs heavy, soaked with the scent of lotus oil, stale wine, and something else you can't quite name. A hush, maybe, or the weight of 100 different ambitions grinding together like millstones. Today is the first true day without him, and the mirror feels odd in your hands, lighter, almost guilty, as though it knows it has lost its purpose. For the first time since you joined the army at 16, you consider leaving it wrapped. No reflection, no ritual, no half compliment about cheekbones or God-approved dimples. Just quiet. You step outside the commandeered palace and into the courtyard. Marble lions glare from their pedestals. They, too, seem confused about who's in charge now. The Ptolemy stalks past, barking orders about a funeral chariot large enough to shame the pyramids. Perdiccas follows, muttering that Egypt is not on the way to Macedon unless you sail the Euphrates in reverse, which, frankly, sounds like a drunken engineering joke waiting to happen. Funny, isn't it? Last week these men would have raced each other to straighten Alexander's cloak. Now they're rehearsing polite ways to stab one another before lunch. You find a quiet alcove, unwrap the mirror, and lay it across your knees. The morning sun creeps up the bronze surface, illuminating the sandstorm scar. You should polish, yet you don't. Instead, you just look, not into the mirror, but at it. A tool without a task. A stage with no actor. Joke 1. You briefly imagine hiring the mirror out for birthday parties. See your face where Alexander's once brooded. Discount if you bring your own laurel. Across the courtyard, a knot of priests chant over bowls of smoldering herbs. Their rhythm is soothing, but the smell is all wrong. A mix of myrrh and panic. They're debating which gods deserve the first sacrifice. Apparently, even in grief, there's a cue. You recall a popular story, one every soldier whispers on long marches, about how Alexander's body supposedly didn't decay for days. Proof of divinity. Little known fact. You've already seen the attendants secretly packing him in thick layers of imported honey. Divine preservatives? More like the world's most expensive beehive. Somewhere a camel braze, which feels absurdly disrespectful. You almost laugh and catch yourself, because laughter can get you stabbed right now. A young scribe in blue rushes over, parchment fluttering. They need a sketch of the king's features for the sculptors, he says, panting. Did you keep any record? You hold up the mirror, half smiling. I carried the record every morning. His eyes widen. May I? You shake your head. It doesn't work like that. A mirror shows only the living in motion. Stone will have to guess at the rest. Joke 2. You think about suggesting the sculptors copy one of those heroic coins. The ones where Alexander's nose looks sharp enough to slice olives, but decide you're not ready to be murdered for sarcasm. Mid-morning, the generals reconvene beneath an awning. They argue about routes, provinces, elephantry, anything except grief. Shields rattle like punctuation marks. From your shady corner, you watch reflections play across polished breastplates. Glints here, blurs there, fractured bits of sunlight that look almost like sparks scattering from a forge. In a way, Alexander is still present, as glare, as echo, as the awkward question nobody can answer. You remember him once saying, I don't conquer to possess. I conquer to be reflected everywhere. Well, mission accomplished. And now everyone's cutting pieces of that reflection to fit their own pockets. Popular event of the day. Word spreads that the royal embalmers have begun preparing an enormous gold-framed hearse, complete with columns, crystal panels, and 4 gilded Nike statues perched on the corners. It will require 64 mules in 3 rows to haul it. Somebody jokes you'll need 65, because 1 mule will inevitably file for sick leave. Joke 3. You privately wager the cart will topple halfway out of Babylon when 1 mule sneezes. History's most expensive fender bender. You rise, dust off your knees. The mirror is still unpolished. Tiny grains of Babylonian dust stipple its bronze face like freckles. You consider wiping them, then stop. Perhaps this speckled patina is fitting. The first day ever that Alexander's mirror carries only your fingerprints. A pair of junior officers stride by, hotly debating whose troops will guard the treasury now. One of them insists that since his men painted their shields brightest, they should get first pick. The other counters that shiny shields do not equal loyalty. You roll your eyes. If shininess were loyalty, you'd be the commander-in-chief by now. You slip into a side passage, away from the bickering. The walls are tiled with glazed lions, blue and gold, mouths frozen mid-roar. You pause in front of one tile that's slightly loose, its roar chipped into a crooked grin. Without thinking, you raise the mirror and angle it so the lion's reflection fills the disk. A cracked king for a cracked empire, you muse. Here, in the hush, you whisper a question to the bronze. Who do I become now? The mirror, predictably, offers no answer, but the silence feels less oppressive, as if acknowledging the question is half the battle. Some historians still argue whether Alexander's death marked the end of an era or the chaotic birth of something entirely new, the Hellenistic world, stitched together from shards of ambition. You are living that argument in real time, polishing a relic that no longer has a master. Afternoon heat pushes you back into the open. A palace servant shuffles past, carrying a tray of figs. They're already shriveling in the sun, like ambitions, left too long on a windowsill. The servant gives you a pitying look, or maybe you imagine it. Either way, you are suddenly aware of how absurd you must seem. a lone attendant clutching an obsolete mirror while empires fracture around him. But there's a quiet power in uselessness. No one covets what they fail to understand. And that means freedom, the first you've tasted in years. As sunset bleeds across the bricks, you retreat to a rooftop overlooking the Euphrates. The water runs slow, copper in the fading light. You set the mirror beside you, lean back, and let the warmth seep into your bones. Nightbirds circle, torches flicker below. Somewhere, a new pact is being sworn or broken in Alexander's name. You run a thumb along the mirror's edge and finally, gently, do what you have always done. A single, patient circle of the cloth, not to erase the dust, not to chase perfection, just to remember the motion, because tomorrow the world will wake up different again, and you'll need at least one familiar rhythm to keep you steady while the rest of history redraws itself in the dark. The moon is a pale coin over Babylon when the messenger finds you. He's breathless, eyes darting like a jackal that's stolen bread off a shrine, and he thrusts a clay tablet into your hands. The wax seal bears Alexander's familiar sunburst emblem, but the wax itself is cracked, as though the sender knew there was no longer a king to impress. You break it open. One line stares back. Take my mirror to Achilles. No address, no instructions, just a command from a man already 2 days dead. Typical. You leave at dawn, slipping through the city gate, while generals squabble over territories and titles, like drunk uncles arguing over the last fig. No one stops you. An attendant without a master is invisible, and invisibility is a fine cloak when the world is divvying up empires with steak knife enthusiasm. Your route skirts the Euphrates, then turns west along the Royal Road, the same artery Alexander once thundered down with 50,000 men. Now it's just you, a stubborn donkey named Hemlock, and the most infamous piece of bronze in history, wrapped inside a dusty satchel. Light joke number 1. Hemlock has 2 speeds, slow and malicious. If laziness were an Olympic sport, he'd invent a third, slower speed, just to set a record. The days melt into one another. Cinnamon dawns, furnace noons, indigo nights, stitched with unfamiliar constellations. You polish the mirror only at dusk, letting the last light slide across its scarred face. You never remove the sandstorm scratch. It feels like a vein, pulsing history into metal. One evening, you camp beside the ruins of an old Persian way station. Half-collapsed columns lean like drunken philosophers, and somewhere a desert fox yips its existential crisis to the stars. You pull out the mirror, hold it toward the embers, and for the first time, speak to it out loud. Are we really doing this? The bronze keeps its secrets, reflecting nothing but firelight and the shape of a weary servant who's forgotten what day it is. Historical waypoint. At Sardis, you pass the Hall of the 100 Columns. Local guides brag it once housed Croesus's treasure. Little known fact, most of that treasure was actually stored in clay jars, not golden coffers, because even legendary kings have budgeting issues. You trade Hemlock for a sturdier mule, one less invested in passive aggression. Light joke number 2. You name the new mule Achilles. He immediately refuses to heal. Poetic irony, or just mule logic. Weeks later, you crest the final ridge and see it. the Hellespont, shimmering like a blade catching sunrise. Beyond those waters lies Troy, or what's left of it, and the tumulus locals claim is Achilles' tomb. Alexander visited it 16 years ago, racing Hephaestion along the beach and laying wreaths in full armor. Some historians still argue about whether he wore Achilles' supposed shield for the occasion or simply brandished a regular hoplon, while the poets embellished the rest. You reach the tomb at dusk, a low, grass-covered mound, crowned by a single, weather-gnarled olive tree. The Aegean wind smells of salt and thyme. Gulls wheel overhead, complaining about eternity. You unwrap the mirror with slow, ceremonial care, hands trembling as if the bronze were a live coal. You half expect lightning or ghostly fanfare, some Hollywood flourish. To validate the mileage, nothing, just wind. You kneel at the mound, set the mirror upright against a root, and wait. Minutes pass. The sky bruises purple. A chill creeps up your spine that has nothing to do with weather. Then, a flicker, not in the air, but on the mirror's surface. A ripple, like heat over a road. You lean closer. A face forms, blurred, half-formed, except for those eyes, sea green, storm bright, and very, very irritated. What took you so long? A voice murmurs, as dry as crushed laurel. You nearly drop the mirror, but you don't, because after polishing a god king's ego for years, a cranky demigod feels manageable. Traffic, you whisper. The ghost of Achilles says. And yes, you just spoke with the literary embodiment of wrath. He studies you the way a veteran inspects inferior armor. You aren't him. No, you say. Where is the golden child who woke me with wreaths and boasts? Gone, you answer softly. But he sent this. You tap the mirror. Achilles' reflection quirks an eyebrow. Typical Macedonian melodrama. He sighs, a sound like rushing tide. He tried so hard to be me, you know. As if wearing another man's legend could fit like armor. You swallow. He wanted recognition, maybe forgiveness, from his own reflection. The ghost laughs. Wind through hollow shields. Tell him this. No hero outruns his shadow. Not even on Bucephalus. He can't hear, you whisper. Then let you carry the message. Achilles replies. Return to Babylon. Hold this mirror over his breast, so his spirit sees what the living always missed, the limits of glory. You hesitate. I don't think Babylon wants me back. History rarely wants the honest ones, Achilles says, eyes softening. Go anyway. A gust rattles the olive leaves. When you look again, the mirror shows only your stunned reflection framed by twilight. Light joke number 3. You suddenly realize you've been ordered around by 2 of antiquity's most famous egomaniacs. You're one oracle, short of a complete drama. You rewrap the mirror. The sea whispers against the rocks. It sounds suspiciously like laughter. On the beach, you scoop a handful of sand into a pouch. Troy's last gift to Babylon's ghost. Maybe Alexander will appreciate the symbolism. Maybe not. Dead kings are fickle critics. Back at your mule, who has chewed through half your saddlebag. You pause. The road home will be longer, rougher, and twice as lonely. But a strange calm settles over you, because somewhere between Babylon's corridors, and Trojan ghosts, you have become more than a mirror bearer. You are the courier of reflections, the custodian of stories, too honest for marble. You mount the mule, point his stubborn nose east, and give a gentle nudge. The moon rises behind you, silvering the tomb, the sea, the long road ahead. In your satchel, bronze whispers against linen, carrying sandstorm scars, honeyed breaths, and now the echo of a legend who lived for rage, but spoke, at the end, with surprising grace. You ride into the dark, and the dark welcomes you, not as a servant of greatness, but as the quiet keeper of its truest face. And somewhere, you think you hear Achilles chuckle. Even gods get homesick for their own reflection. You push east along the royal road, mule hooves ticking like a slow-beating drum. Daylight slants across Anatolia in sheets of hammered gold, and every horizon feels exactly one ambition too far away. The mirror, wrapped, scarred, impossibly silent, rides against your hip like a secret you can't quite believe you're brave enough to keep. The first week is all thirsty miles and roadside shrines. You pause at each little stone altar, offer a pebble or a whispered apology, and imagine the gods tallying up your sincerity on some cosmic abacus. Achilles, the mule, remains unmoved by theology. He shows more interest in chewing prayer flags than earning divine favor. Light joke 1. At one shrine, a priest tries to sell you a genuine tooth of Zeus. You politely decline, pointing out that even immortals need better dental plans. By the second week, you hit the battle-scarred plains of Issus, where Alexander smashed Darius's army a lifetime ago. Or, for the rest of the world, just 12 short years. The plain still bears the faint grid of forgotten camps, scorched earth, rusted tent pegs, and one lonely spearhead glinting half-buried in dirt. You dismount, plant the mirror upright in the breeze, and let it drink in the emptiness. A popular story says Alexander wept here, not for the thousands dead, but because there were still more worlds left to conquer. You trace the sandstorm scratch with your thumb and decide the weeping probably had as much to do with sore feet and bad rations as cosmic yearning. The mirror, annoyingly, refuses to comment. Onward, dust eats your sandals, stars slide overhead like beads on a dark string. You trade a lucky bronze coin in a Cilician market for dates and a rumor. Ptolemy has seized the royal funeral cart, steering it south toward Egypt. Perdiccas is furious. Armies are mobilizing, and Babylon is simmering like lentil stew left too long on the flame. History is rearranging itself faster than you can travel. Light joke 2. If empire splitting were a board game, they'd call it Risk Honey Preserved Corpse Edition. You cross the Euphrates at dusk. The ferry master squints at the linen bundle under your cloak. Relic of a saint? He asks. You smile, almost believing it. The river takes you in gentle loops, and for a moment, you fancy the mirror humming, a bronze heartbeat, keeping time with the current. That night, you camp near Carrhae, where Crassus lost both legions and his dignity to the Parthians. A toothless veteran shares your fire, claims he saw Alexander drink an entire amphora of wine without blinking. You don't correct him. Instead, you polish the mirror in slow circles, while he snores, letting ember light turn the bronze into a low orange sun. Little known fact, Macedonian officers sometimes mixed resin and crushed saffron into their polishing pastes, believing the golden tint would seduce fortune. You try it with a stray saffron thread. The mirror emerges smelling like expensive rice and regret. By the time you reach the gates of Babylon, the sky is thick with carrion birds. Smoke curls from temple pylons, where priests burn every kind of incense they can find, hoping at least one scent pleases whichever god now handles succession crises. The streets buzz with gossip. Perdiccas plotting vengeance, Roxana under guard, and Alexander's unborn child already the centerpiece of 3 competing prophecies. You slip through side alleys to avoid checkpoints, hugging the satchel close. In the palace courtyard, lion statues still glare, but the eyes of their bronze bodies seem dimmer, as though the master source of light has moved on. Inside, the throne room is chaos. Generals bicker around a stripped dais. Someone has actually drawn lines on the floor with chalk to illustrate potential borders. It looks less like governance and more like children arguing over slices of pomegranate. You hover at the edge, mirror hidden, hoping no one calls on the former servant who knows too many of Alexander's haircut secrets. At dusk, you find the embalmer's chamber, empty now, but for lingering honey-sweet air. A marble slab bears the faint imprint of a body recently lifted. You unwrap the mirror, set it on the stone, and scatter the pouch of Trojan sand around it like a fragile, golden moat. You lean forward. For a heartbeat, nothing. Then the bronze ripples again, like moonlit water, until a faint silhouette resolves. Alexander, younger, brighter, curls tousled by sea wind. Not the fever-pale corpse you left, but the man who once barked, "Hand me the sun." Every morning, "Back so soon?" he asks, mouth curling into the half-teasing grin you polished into legend. "You asked me," you whisper. He glances over your shoulder, perhaps searching for the cliffs of Sogdian rock or the tomb of Achilles. Did he laugh at me? Yes, you admit. And then he forgave you. Alexander sighs, equal parts vanity and relief. Typical Achilles, always dramatic in his mercy. Outside the shutters, trumpets blare, Perdiccas rallying troops, or maybe just announcing dinner. You flinch. Alexander does not. The mirror image regards the commotion with bored amusement, as if battles are merely background noise to a man who has already outrun maps. "Hold the mirror to my chest," he says softly. "Let them see." "They won't look," you reply. "They're too busy carving your name into pieces they can pocket." "Then show yourself," he counters. "Remember the cost of shining." He taps the sandstorm scar. All glory pays in scratches. You swallow hard, because tears feel perilously close, and nobody cries in front of a demigod, living or otherwise. Yet you manage a smile. Light joke 3. If I polish any harder, they'll promote me to Chief Minister of Reflections. He chuckles. Warm, bittersweet, gone too quickly. Then the image dims. Bronze returns to plain bronze. Just your face again. Tired, grainy with road dust, but unmistakably alive. Some historians still argue about where Alexander's true resting place lies, whether in Alexandria's lost tomb or somewhere beneath Babylonian silt. You alone know a third possibility. That part of him lives inside a mirror scratch, deep enough to hold an empire. You rewrap the bronze, slip it under your cloak, and step into the corridor. Soldiers thunder past, eyes set on tomorrow's battle. Lines, not one of them sees you, but that's fine. Being unseen is its own armor. You walk toward the eastern gate, heart steady, mule waiting. The night air smells of lotus again. Sweet, overwhelming, unforgettable. You inhale, then exhale the last breath of a king who chased mirrors across the world. Tomorrow, you will decide where to carry the reflection next. Tonight, you simply move through torchlight and echo, polishing the memory with every careful step. The throne room smells of hot metal and cold ambition. Braziers spit resinous smoke that curls around marble pillars like gossip in visible form. And somewhere, a zither plucks a tune so delicate you doubt even the gods can hear it over the arguing. You slip through a side door, mirror clutched tight. The generals are in full pageant mode, arrayed around a low dais where Alexander's empty throne squats like a dare. Laid out on crimson cushions are 3 separate crowns: the plain Macedonian fillet of hammered gold, the Persian upright tiara studded with carnelians, and the red and white pshent of Egypt, its twin peaks shining like shark fins in candlelight. Light joke 1. You half expect someone to bring out a 4th crown shaped like a laughing emoji, just to keep the symbolism on brand. Perdiccas is pacing, Ptolemy's envoys glower from the archway, and Roxana, veiled, silent, watches it all with an expression you can't read. A scribe records every eye twitch, as though future generations will grade the posture of grief. Bring the mirror, Perdiccas snaps. You glide forward, knees suddenly aware of every past mile. He grabs the bronze, angles it, so the Macedonian fillet reflects his brow. Too narrow. He tries the Persian tiara. Too tall. He lifts the Egyptian shent, wobbles under its weight. This one makes me look authoritative. He decides. You tilt your head. It makes you look like you're hiding a pigeon under your hat. He scowls. The tiara slants sideways, proving your point. Somewhere a junior officer coughs to cover a laugh. They're rehearsing the public homage. Later today, they will parade Alexander's armor, lay these crowns before the corpse, and announce a unified regency. Translation: everyone wants to look kingly without actually saying I'm king. Crowns are safer than coronations. They shove the Persian tiara back at you. The rubies hiss against your palm, surprisingly hot. You polish instinctively, circles gentle, remembering the last time Alexander wore it. Babylonian New Year, when he danced with Persian nobles and made jokes nobody dared laugh at until he signaled it was safe. Popular event to anchor the tale. This is the day of the partition of Babylon, when the marshals will carve the empire into satrapies like an overripe melon. Outside, troops in mismatched uniforms stand in uneasy squares, waiting to cheer for whoever looks shiniest. A chamberlain scuttles up with news. Ptolemy's cavalry has commandeered part of the funeral convoy. Perdiccas curses, nearly decapitates himself with the Egyptian crown. You rescue it somehow, before history records an ironic accident involving hubris and millinery. Light joke, too. You wonder if you should start a side hustle. Emergency crown handling. Because bad headgear shouldn't kill good plots. Smoke thickens. The zither stops. Even the braziers seem to hold their breath. Roxana steps forward. Without a word, she lifts the simple Macedonian fillet, places it over her own veil, then meets the mirror's gaze. You raise the bronze higher, and in that quiet pain, you watch grief harden into something diamond bright. She doesn't flinch. She simply nods once. Message received. The unborn child she carries will need this crown one day. A lesser-known fact you recall while holding your breath. The Persian tiara, called a kadaris, weighed so much it often required an inner leather cap to keep the spikes from cutting the wearer's scalp. Symbols carry price tags. Nobody lists in epic poetry. Perdiccas clears his throat, trying to wrest back the moment. We'll use all three, he says, voice grand, but eyes twitching. Present them together atop the bier. Unity. You glimpse Roxana's smirk. Unity tastes strangely like pluralism with stage lighting. They shuffle the crowns into a single stack. Tiara first, Egyptian shent next, Macedonian fillet perched on top like a precarious pastry. You imagine it slipping during the procession, bouncing down the steps and rolling into the Euphrates, while onlookers debate whether that's an omen for trout or just bad choreography. Light joke 3. 3 crowns on one body. It's either divine syncretism or the ancient world's first episode of extreme hat makeover. Perdiccas turns to you. Does it look complete? You angle the mirror toward the gilded heap. It looks heavy. He exhales. History is heavy. Then he softens, almost human. You carried his reflection longer than any of us. Tell me, did he ever doubt wearing this many titles? You brush the sandstorm scar with your thumb. He doubted everything except the next sunrise. Perdiccas nods. A curse and a compass. He straightens. Very well. Let's proceed. As servants lift the bier, the stacked crowns tremble. A quivering tower of authority about to meet Babylon's humid air. Drums start outside, muffled thuds that shake dust from frescoes. You fall in behind the cortege, mirror pressed to your chest, heart echoing the cadence. Crowds surge as the doors open. Some wail, some stare, some angle. For glimpses of gold they can describe to grandchildren who won't believe a single word. Children scatter petals. Priests sprinkle saffron water that steams off sun-baked slabs. Halfway down the grand staircase, a gust kicks up. The Persian tiara lists west. The pshent tilts east. And for a breathless heartbeat, you fear gravity will upstage ceremony. But the crowns settle, miraculously, as though some unseen hand steadies them. Historians still argue about this moment. Did the crowns truly wobble? Some chronicles insist an eagle flew overhead, symbol of Zeus confirming the succession. Others swear no such bird existed and blame later poets for adding feathery flair. Scholars debate the reliability of palace guards who'd been paid in advance to see omens. Your memory? You saw only wind, dust, and men sweating inside destiny. At the riverbank, the bier halts. Priests chant over cedar oil torches. The stacked crowns shimmer like a moral about excess Nobody dares recite aloud. You hold the mirror high. Sunlight splinters across the bronze, bouncing onto the crowns, onto Perdicus's tense jaw, onto Roxana's veil. For one blinding instant, the reflection knits them together, a single flash of unity in a world already fraying, and then it's gone. The cortege moves on toward the honey-filled sarcophagus and the still disputed road to Egypt. You step back, arms trembling, mirror warm against your heartbeat. Somewhere in the city, a trumpet misfires, squealing off-key, a perfect coda for plans laid by committee. You wrap the mirror, feeling those 3 crowns still vibrating in your bones. Too many weights for one head, too many hopes for one reflection. Yet here you stand, balancing the echo, polishing the tremor. Tomorrow, maybe, they'll fight openly. Tomorrow, maybe, a crown will finally fall. But tonight Babylon glows under 50 competing torches, each flame insisting it alone will carry daylight into the next age. You walk away before the last prayer ends, thinking of sandy ghosts, tangled laurel, and cracked bronze that remembers every glare it ever caught. The mirror rests against your ribs, steady as a lullaby drum, reminding you that even when crowns multiply like hydra heads, there's still only one surface where truth must land, and you'll keep it bright, scratches and all. The first thing you notice is the smell. Not incense or oil this time, but something sharp, metallic, like rain hitting bronze. It comes from deep inside the royal tent, where low voices mumble and bowls clatter against wood. You pull the flap aside and freeze. Alexander lies on a heap of linen, eyes half open, skin the waxy gray of storm clouds before noon. His fingers twitch against the rug in a rhythm too frantic to be dreams and too weak to be declarations. Nearby, a physician stirs a simmering brew that looks more like swamp water than medicine. He spots you. "Don't come closer," he croaks, voice rough as unpolished iron. "The mirror betrays me." You pause, clutching the bronze to your chest. "Betrays?" He coughs, a wet, rattling sound that seems to shake the silk walls. The reflection lies, shows me fading. A king can't fade. You kneel 5 paces away. He won't let you closer, and unwrap the mirror, just enough to glimpse its face. It looks the same as always. Surface gently scarred by desert wind. Edges bright where your cloth has loved them smooth. No monster lurking in the bronze. Only a distorted glint of lamplight and worry. "Bring it here," he murmurs after a moment, as if convinced by silence. You crawl forward, inch by inch, until the mirror hangs over him, like a captured moon. He stares into it, sees sweat-slick hair, trembling jaw, pupils dilated wide enough to swallow night. He jerks back. "Poison," he whispers. "They dose the wine. Perdicus, Roxana, maybe even the river gods. They want my crowns without the weight." You want to say he's dehydrated, overheated, badly bled, but the tent is full of ears, sharper than daggers, and a misplaced word could add your name to the death list. Instead, you adopt the soothing voice you once used on skittish war horses. You've beaten fevers before, remember? After Tyre, when the arrow grazed your lung, he shakes his head. That arrow respected me. This creeps. Across, the rug's abrasure pops, spraying sparks. Alexander flinches, as though the fire itself has taken sides, Light joke 1. You're suddenly grateful you never told him about bad hair days. He'd brand them a conspiracy too. Outside, Babylon roars with rumor. Some swear a curse from distant India has found its mark. Others whisper of chilled wine mixed with hellebore, a purge that won't stop purging. You, however, see something simpler, a body finally protesting the pace of an empire. Popular event anchoring the tale. Word spreads that the regimental officers are meeting under armed guard tonight, desperate to decide who commands the eastern satrapies. If Alexander cannot stand tomorrow, they've already drawn lots once, tore them up, and now threaten to settle things with dice or swords. Alexander tries to sit, loses balance, grips your sleeve. Lift me, he gasps. You brace under his shoulders. He's lighter than yesterday. Like the illness has hollowed him out from within, you angle the mirror so he can see. But his gaze drifts, searching beyond the bronze, behind it, perhaps hoping to spot Achilles, waiting in the reflection's wings. Tell me it's a prank, he pleads, teeth chattering despite the swelter. Say the gods are testing my impatience. You swallow. It's a storm, that's all. And storms pass. Light joke too, though admittedly, you add under your breath, some take longer than overdue library scrolls. He almost laughs, but the sound crumbles into another coughing fit. Scarlet flecks stain the linen beneath his lips. The physician sets down the ladle, brow furrowed. My king, you must drink. Alexander waves him off. No, water is treacherous. Then he grips your wrist, ice-cold fingers clutching, as though the mirror might melt away. You drink first, he orders. You raise the cup, swallow. It tastes of bitter herbs and regret, but nothing fatal, unless heartbreak counts. He watches, eyes narrowed, then grudgingly sips. Half the liquid dribbles down his chin. You wipe it gently, cloth brushing the stubble that sprouted during yesterday's chaos. Funny, not long ago, he threatened to fire you for letting a single bristle go unchecked. And now facial hair feels like the least of his kingdom's slipping. He leans back, exhausted. If the mirror lies, break it, he whispers. Smash the bronze, cast it into the Euphrates. Before they raid my image, the way they raid my cities, you set the glass aside, cradle the mirror in both hands. It has never lied, you answer softly. It showed every triumph, every scratch, every tear. It shows you now. Then I'm fading, he mutters, eyelids sinking. Like ink left in sun. Little known fact. Macedonians believed certain illnesses could be chased away by turning a polished shield toward sunrise and shouting the patient's name 3 times. You almost try it with the mirror, but his name has already echoed across half the earth. Shouting won't cure it what ambition ignited. He drifts in and out, murmuring fragments, marching hymns. Hephaestion's laugh, his mother's stern lullabies. At one point he jolts up, eyes wild. Where's the crown stack? Did they keep them balanced? You nod. They gleamed brighter than prophecy. A thin smile. Good. Let them juggle my shine. Light joke. 3. You're tempted to quip. There, one sneeze from international incident. But decide bedside sarcasm is best fed in small bites. Hours crawl torches burn low. Outside, hoarse chanting rises, soldiers praying, or maybe wagering. Inside, the mirror grows heavy in your lap, as though absorbing each fevered breath. Kak sudya van kontran luan, vaviek, Alexander ko tuksubi jaujok, hai kong. Some blame foul wine, others parasites from marshy water, still others an acute bout of typhoid, hiding beneath layers of legend. All you know is what the mirror shows. A conqueror reduced to shivers, clutching at reflections, bargaining with polished bronze for one more dawn. Near midnight, he clamors again. Raise me to the light. You slide cushions under him, prop the mirror so it captures the single lamp left burning. His face glows briefly, pallid gold, like a coin worn smooth by too many eager hands. He sighs, not battered, not proud, simply done. And for the first time since you met, he does not ask how his jawline looks. He only whispers, "Tell the river gods I tried." You squeeze his fingers, feel a faint pulse flutter like a moth. Outside, thunder mumbles somewhere beyond the palace walls. You are not sure if it's real weather or history clearing its throat. The lamp flickers. The mirror gleams. In its depth, two figures fade. A king who once grabbed sunrise by the throat, and the quiet servant who kept the sunrise spotless. You keep polishing, softer now, cloth moving as gently as breath. Because even if the reflection dims, the ritual remains. And when dawn finally drips over Babylon's bricks, you're still there, guarding the last honest light he'll ever see. The wick gutters, sputters, and finally settles into a tiny blue flame, the only star left in the dim chamber. You have become its patient moon, orbiting with cloth and mirror in hand, polishing out of habit more than hope. Alexander lies where you propped him after midnight, head turned slightly toward the door, as though still half expecting another envoy to burst in with maps that need conquering. You work in soft circles, letting the bronze collect whatever glow the lamp will spare. Your shoulders ache, your knuckles feel made of rope, but the rhythm soothes you, the way distant surf lulls sleepless sailors. Steady, shushing, pointless, perfect. A breathless aide pokes his head through the curtains. How fares the king, honored, mirror bearer? You tilt the disc just enough to show the reflection. Alexander's chest, unmoving. The aide blanches, mutters about fetching priests who specialize in post-mortem encouragement, and retreats faster than a sandal ghost at sunrise. Light joke. 1. You consider opening a side business. Last looks lidded. Final grooming for people too stubborn to breathe. Demand seems high. You angle the mirror so it captures Alexander's face. Skin waxy, lips parted, eyes half-lidded in an expression that could be deep sleep or deeper departure. A single curl, rebellion till the end, still clings to his brow. Without thinking, you tuck it back, remembering the day he hacked at his hair with that ornamental knife and declared himself Achilles' understudy. Outside, Babylon stirs like a pot left on the fire. Footsteps thump in corridors. Armor clinks. Whispers stack atop rumors until even the walls hum with speculation. They haven't announced his death yet. They're too busy editing their reactions for maximum theater. Will they wail or merely nod and ask whose turn it is to rule Tuesday afternoons? You breathe in the lamp's bitter smoke. Somewhere, honey, the embalmers are heating vats to preserve his body. Little known fact, honey was prized as the most incorruptible of substances. Greek mothers sometimes sealed newborns' first teeth in jars of it, believing sweetness could bribe the grave. Now, the same logic will coat a king. Alexander's fingers are cool beneath yours. You place the mirror into his right hand. Curl his stiffening fingers around the handle. Let him hold his legend one final time. The sand-scarred surface sends a faint stripe of light across his cheek. A last sunrise tailored just for him. Remember Tyre. You whisper, half chant, half prayer. Remember Sogdian Rock. Remember the sandal ghosts. If memory truly is immortal, best to pack a hearty lunch for the afterlife. He does not stir. Somewhere beyond the shutters, thunder mutters, perhaps real storm, perhaps the Euphrates complaining about yet another state funeral, scheduled without proper permits. Light joke too. You imagine Babylon's city accountant sighing, "Great, another hero surcharge. Do we at least get a tax rebate on laurel wreaths?" You straighten, roll your sleeves, and start the final polish. 3 deliberate passes over the metal's heart, clockwise, counterclockwise, then a gentle whisper down the middle. The cloth drinks up dust and grief in equal measure. When you finish, the lamplight pools in the bronze, clear enough you can count your own eyelashes. For a breath, you meet your reflection, eye to tired eye, and wonder who exactly you've been grooming all these years, the king or the idea of him. A sudden clatter at the doorway. Perdiccas barges in, robes half-tied, eyes red from sleepless arithmetic. He sees the still form, sees you, and stops. Is he? You nod. He approaches warily, like a child tiptoeing around a sleeping lion that may yet roar. "We must act," he whispers, gaze flicking to the mirror. "Seal the palace, secure the treasury, call the troops." You raise a palm, quiet but firm. Let him finish this moment. Perdiccas exhales, impatience rattling in his throat. Yet he waits. You step aside so he can see. Alexander clutching the mirror, crownless, breathless, yet oddly peaceful, as if the weight of visions finally rolled off his shoulders. The sandstorm scratch bisects his reflection like a comet tail, reminding everyone that even meteors score their own skins. Some historians still argue, you say softly, whether his final words were about greatness or homesickness. You tap the bronze. I think they were simply goodbye. Perdiccas shifts, the ambitious soldier shrinking into a boy who once chased heroes across parchment. "What now?" he murmurs. "Now you decide how many crowns fit on one coffin," you reply, "and whether the mirror rides with him or walks away." He blinks. Perhaps he sees the trap. Whoever controls the relic of his likeness might sway, hearts faster than armies. He wets his lips. Do you claim it? You look at the bronze, at the lifeless hand gripping its edge. A hush fills your chest, a hush shaped exactly like freedom. "No," you say. "I release it." Perdiccas nods, relief and calculation in equal measure. He reaches to pry the mirror from Alexander's fingers, but stops. It shouldn't leave his side, he says. Imagine the omens. You shrug, then let it lie on his breast. Let the armies argue in their own reflections. You step back, gather your battered cloth, and turn for the exit. Perdiccas calls after, Where will you go? East, maybe west. You smile. Wherever people need a little shine. Light joke. 3. I hear Persia's short on professional polishers. Sand keeps eating their dinnerware. He almost laughs. Almost. Then the war drums inside his skull reclaim him. He kneels to arrange Alexander's hands neatly around the mirror, like a sleeping child clutching a favorite toy, while you slip into the corridor before politics can remember your name. Torches flicker, courtiers buzz. Somewhere a lyre begins, a mournful hymn, halfway between lullaby and victory march. You walk past them unseen, ghosted by years of practiced discretion. Your palms feel light, naked, relieved, like you've set down a stone that disguised itself as bronze. Outside, dawn finally tips over Babylon's rooftops. A new sun, ownerless. The air carries neither trumpet nor prophecy, only sparrows fighting over crumbs. You breathe, stretch fingers cramped from eternal circles, and for the first time in forever, you step into morning without a mirror waiting to define you. The world looks blurry, yes, but wonderfully so. The way rivers blur at bends, before discovering whole new landscapes. Behind you, priests chant, generals clank, scholars sharpen quills. Ahead, alleys curve toward marketplaces you've never visited, stories you've never polished. You walk on, unburdened, following the hush that tastes vaguely of honey and thunder, wondering what your own face looks like when nobody else's glory leans against it. And if the Empire notices your absence, well, they'll just have to find another way to see themselves. Dawn finds you already on the road. Just you, Achilles the mule, and a canvas satchel that no longer clinks like captive sunlight. Babylon's ziggurats shrink behind you until they're little more than stepped shadows under a pink horizon. The air tastes of minted dust. The world feels strangely wide now that no horn summons you back to polished destiny. By noon, the royal road bends into low hills, littered with broken steles. Most bear half-erased proclamations of victory. A few are vandalized with fresh names in crooked Greek. Everyone wants a headline, you think? Nudging Achilles onward, he answers with a theatrical snort. Mules have opinions about vanity too. Around the next rise, you reach a lonely caravanserai. The place hums with nervous merchants, trading rumors instead of silk. Perdiccas has marched north. Ptolemy has vanished south with the corpse. Seleucus counts war elephants like dice. It's the unofficial sequel to Alexander's conquests, played by understudies, reviewed by gossips, financed by fear. You claim a corner, unwrap the mirror, and lay it on a crate of figs. Its bronze face shows only roof beams and your own road-creased grin. No crown, no prophecy, just a reflection, finally free to be ordinary. A spice seller squats beside you. Fine shield, friend. Persian? Mirror. You correct. He squints. Too scratched to fetch much silver. You shrug. Some treasures sell only to memory. Light joke. 1. You briefly consider advertising it as pre-scratched for extra authenticity, no heroic upkeep required. You share tea while the merchant regales you with today's public event. A coalition of generals has issued a joint decree promising unbroken unity. Everyone laughs into their cups. The ink is still wet, the swords already drawn. Later, you wander to the courtyard well. You hold the mirror over the water, letting its reflection kiss another. Bronze above, rippled sky below. Two imperfect faces meeting in the middle. You whisper, which of us is truer? The well, predictably, grants no insight, but a startled swallow cartwheels overhead as though to applaud the question. Unusual fact. Most travelers think wells are dug straight down. Babylonian engineers slanted theirs, corkscrewing through clay so water rose like a tame serpent. Innovation hides in plain sight, just like servants who carry mirrors across continents. Evening slides in, warm as spilled honey. You set camp under a crumbly arch and prop the mirror against a saddlebag. In firelight, the sand scar looks softer, more like a deliberate engraving. Here, history got personal. You resist polishing. It deserves to rest. You bite into a fig, sticky sweetness bursting onto your tongue, and wonder what Alexander would have said about figs versus glory. Probably that figs make poor trophies unless gilded. You roll your eyes, laughing quietly. Light joke too. You decide figs win. They don't demand 3 crowns or daily affirmations. Under the arch, you scribble notes on a clay sherd. The number of campfires on the horizon. The smell of cardamom on caravan breezes. The sound a mule makes when it dreams. Tomorrow, you'll smash the sherd into shards and scatter them. Tiny footnotes for future archaeologists. Because, even now, Kaksugia Vankon, Tranluan, Vevik, what truly matters? The battles, the spoils, or the small grains of truth servants drop like breadcrumbs. Let them puzzle over why a scratched mirror appears in so many legends, but none of the official inventories. You stretch, back popping, muscles humming, Achilles sidles close, muzzle seeking leftover fig, pulp. You oblige. He thanks you with a pleased bray, loud enough to startle the stars. Light joke 3. Somewhere, a chronicler will mishear that bray and record ominous trumpet blast signals. Rise of new dynasty. Accuracy is overrated when drama is on sale. Midnight drapes the world in indigo. You sit cross-legged, mirror on your lap, and watch the fire sink into red coals. For the first time in years, nobody expects you to angle the bronze just so. You could pack it away, sell it, even hurl it into the desert. Instead, you trace the rim. Feel each dent like a braille diary. Every tap of spear, every grain of wind, every tear Alexander swallowed before parades. They're all here, etched deeper than any inscription. A breeze sighs through the arch, coaxing the fire to low murmur. You pull up your cloak, settle against the mule's warm flank, and let your eyelids drift. Somewhere beyond the hills, generals remix borders. Somewhere by the Nile, attendants glaze a golden sarcophagus. Somewhere in myth, Achilles and Alexander debate whether eternity feels cramped. Yet and here, just here, an anonymous mirror bearer exhales, palms open, finally ready to set the weight of reflections down. Now slow your breathing, friend. Feel the road dust slide from your thoughts, one grain at a time. The campfire's glow softens, like lanterns dimming along a distant quay. Listen to Achilles graze in half dreams, his steady munch rising and falling, slower and slower, until it folds into the night's hush. Overhead, constellations wander west, tracing lines even empires can't redraw. In your hands, the mirror cools, its bronze heartbeat easing into stillness. No more crowds, no more crowns, no more mornings racing the sun. Only you, the whisper of warm wind, and the quiet certainty that stories, yours included, can glow without being blinding. So let the world outside fade, the clatter of market stalls, the echo of marching feet, the argument's history still owes itself. Let them drift like embers beyond view. Draw your cloak higher, feel the weight lift from your shoulders, and allow the dark to cradle you the way sand cradles hidden rivers. Each breath arrives softer, deeper. Your heartbeat finds the mule's slow rhythm. Your thoughts dim to a gentle murmur, then to silence, then to sleep. And as sleep folds over you, imagine the mirror's scar becoming a thin silver thread, stitching one dream to the next. Never tight, never binding, always guiding, until morning unfurls calm and unhurried. Nothing to polish, nothing to prove, only the tender glint of another dawn waiting to be noticed.